All right, guys, welcome back to BlockHash Exploring the Blockchain, episode 262. Today, we have an awesome guest from Orchid Labs, the head of product, Travis Cannell. Travis, welcome to the show. Happy to have you here. How you doing?
Hey, thanks for having me, Brandon. It's awesome to be on.
Yeah, it's a pleasure to have you. A lot of cool stuff I want to talk about with you today regarding Orchid. We've had you guys on the show once prior in the past, but would love to learn more about what you guys are doing now, how you guys have evolved since, and some of the cool things you guys are working on. Before we do that, Travis, tell us a bit more about yourself. I'm sure the audience would love to know more about your story and your backgrounds and how you kind of got into the space.
Yeah, I became enamored with crypto maybe in like 2013 or 2014 when Bitcoin started to make one of its first runs. And I was working at a startup at the time in Santa Monica. But there just really wasn't like the kind of industry that there is now. And there's really no way that I could see to kind of jump into it. So anyways, I kind of stayed in my marketing role as a growth marketer with a startup that I was working for that was then purchased by Intuit. And I worked on QuickBooks products for about 5 years doing growth marketing. And then I had an opportunity pop up with Orchid around 2018. And so I jumped in to start working on marketing for them. And I kind of jumped back and forth between marketing and product work with Orchid. But I was there before we launched our token and our app and our network all together in 2019, which was really exciting. And so it's been about a nice 4-year ride with Orchid for me so far. It's just a pretty long time in the crypto space.
Nice. Did you have any prior experience in the space leading up to Orchid, or is that your first go around?
Oh, just a little experience with Bitcoin, just playing around with it before, and then joining in the water cooler chat as everyone was talking about it, and thinking about it. I do remember watching like Ethereum launch, which was pretty exciting, the idea of smart contracts and programmability. So, but I was just very much an outsider then, just kind of watching a little bit of the show from afar. With Orchid, I got a chance to work with Jay Freeman, who I respect a lot. His name is Sorik, is really what he's known by. And he's started the Cydia, which is the Apple App Store, kind of renegade Apple App Store, really kind of the first Apple App Store. And I went to college with him, and I knew him from then. And so when he started getting more and more involved with Orchid, he really wanted somebody that was technical. We studied computer science together. He really wanted somebody that was more technical to come in and run the marketing and help out with the marketing for Orchid. So I kind of jumped in there and then quickly started getting involved in product, trying to make our product more usable and a little bit easier to get people into, and just listening to customers and trying to improve it as much as we could, given the constraints of, how it works and the blockchain that we're running on, or blockchains now. So yeah, that's a lot
Nice.
of what I've been kind of focused on and working on. So yeah.
Cool. Is that mostly what a day in the life of a head of product is like for Orchid? Is that mostly what you do? Or do you have other responsibilities?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a lot of just putting out fires and then seeing what you want to create with a lot of like the presentation, the narrative around things, how we present ourselves on the website, the different flows, getting into our product, different things like that. So it's pretty involved, and then to answering customer service requests, and then kind of doing triage there and turning those into new app features. So that's another big part of it too.
Got it. So it sounds like you do quite a bit of stuff.
Yeah. Yep. That's right. They keep me
Nice.
pretty busy,
Mhm.
which is always a good place to be. So
Good,
yeah.
good. So let's talk about Orchid a bit more. Can you give us an overview of what Orchid is as a protocol, What are some of the things that you guys are focused on, accomplishing? Like, what's your mission? What's your goal?
Yeah, definitely. I really love Orchid's mission. We really want to build new decentralized pieces of technology so that everyone has access to the open internet. Kind of like trying to rebuild parts of the internet so that it's more private, and that you have more privacy from your ISP, and even kind of beyond that. So that's kind of our mission. We want to get everyone connected to the open internet to get access to the same information that the kind of the Western world does. And when we kind of started building some pieces of technology to do a sort of a VPN. But I use the kind of air quotes with that because it's very different from a kind of traditional VPN. And we built a number of pieces of technology that I think are really cool, that I have seen a couple of other projects in the space, kind of pick up on and start using. But the main kind of question that I think it's part of our white paper, and it's a pretty interesting one, is kind of how small of a payment can you send? What's the smallest kind of payment that you can send? And the reason why we're even asking that question is because when you have a commodity like bandwidth, and you want to have a trustless marketplace, you don't really want to have trust built up in any one entity. So now if I go to NordVPN, I can pay them for a month. I can also pay them, for 3 years or 5 years of service. Obviously, that's like a lot of trust and centralization that you're putting into the single payment that you're giving to them, and they are promising to give you like a year's worth of service. With Orchid, and to be truly kind of a trustless marketplace, what you want is a lot of liquidity. So when you are connected to a VPN, if you don't like your service, you can quit at any time, and both sides on that transaction, no one's out a lot of money. So we wanted to be able to make really, really tiny payments to have this liquid bandwidth marketplace. And how we did that is what we call our nanopayments. But essentially, it's a way of using probability to send payments. So rather than sending somebody $1, you send them, say, 1 out of 100 chance of winning $100. And that scales really nicely down on the low end. So you can actually, Orchid all the time is doing payments with every, maybe 4 or 5 packets. So we're talking about like millipenny payments. So when you're running Orchid the VPN, you're usually charged about 6 cents a gigabyte, but you're billed every couple of bytes, which is really quite innovative and kind of amazing. So we are actually working right now. I can come back and talk about the VPN, but right now, actually, one of our cool core focus is on the nanopayments itself. We want to make that a little bit more useful and get it out there so other people can use it. It's running actually on 9 different blockchains. So we started it just on Ethereum, and then we revved our smart contract and we launched it on Ethereum, Gnosis, and then 7 other chains. Even some of the cooler exotic ones like Aurora, and ones where that they have very low fees. We even ran it on a layer 2 Optimism, which is kind of fun because then it's like our layer 2 is running on another layer 2. And so a lot of just the EVM compatible chains we launched on. So we got a lot of experience with some of the problems of EVM compatibility, because a lot of chains say that they're EVM compatible, but they really aren't, or they don't support all the right geth calls for log support, which we run into. So you run into a lot of issues when people say they're EVM compatible, and then you go to actually use their blockchain and look up information on it, and sometimes it's not there, or they handle it quite differently. So but yeah, our nano payments, we think that they can be useful for other things for developers. So anyone who wants to send really small payments, kind of like a stream of really small payments, it works well. It doesn't really work well if you just are wanting to send 1 or 2 transactions to somebody and you want that finality. There's a little bit of a setup cost incurred when you move money onto our L2. and make an Orchid account. And you have to kind of have some in reserve and sort of a deposit that prevents double spending on the network. And so, there's a little bit of a setup cost. Of course, you can get all that money back, but there's a little bit of a setup cost. And so you want to be able to send nanopayments for something you're kind of streaming payments for.
Mhm.
So we've thought a lot about maybe even setting up for like API server requests, something like, sometimes you go to a website and you want to make API calls to their service, and they put you in some sort of tiered monthly payment category. When with something like nanopayments, you could send really small, tiny millipenny payments for like running a server. Then you could actually just pay per request, which would be kind of interesting. So we think that the technology can also be useful for other things rather than just bandwidth, but compute and storage being the other two like major pieces, which is kind of exciting. So we're doing some work now. That's kind of our latest push to make the our DApp a little bit better and easier to use, and then to write an SDK so people can actually play with the nanopayments and stuff. Right now, we've got a little bit of Python code internally that we've been playing with, but we're actually going to need to get some help with that. But yeah.
Yeah, nanopayments sound really interesting. It sounds like it's definitely something that goes beyond just person A sending a payment to person B, and it's streaming payments. You could do a lot of things with that. Like, I don't know if you guys thought about maybe doing a browser at some point, like Brave browser has all these integrations with like basic attention token, and there's ways to reward people for searching websites or advertisers, or businesses that want advertising or content creation, things like that. It broadens the scope quite a bit.
Yeah, we want to get into the business of not building the application layer, but actually, like just getting the tech working so that other people can use it, and kind of the true open source sort of ethos. So, but yeah, I think there's a lot of applications. That could be an interesting one with a browser, and anything related to security is kind of related to our mission. Us, the one that we thought was most interesting, which is the VPN. That's why we built it, because as you're forwarding packets for somebody, incorporating payments into those packets seems like it's a win. That's also an easy way to understand what our VPN protocol is, which I know that you were asking about. But some of the major VPN protocols that are on the market right now are OpenVPN and WireGuard. WireGuard's kind of the new hotness that is fast. And everyone, if you're getting a VPN, from a centralized provider, you're typically going to want to set up a WireGuard connection. It's a little bit of a simpler setup process, and it's just a lot faster of a connection that you're going to get. Orchid protocol basically introduces packets or payments with the in the protocol itself. So, and of course, it's a lot newer than WireGuard or OpenVPN. So it isn't necessarily as fast, but there's a lot that still can be done with that protocol because payments are being sent. So there's things that could maybe be done with congestion control. It's kind of still, I think, early for that protocol. But we made our VPN app in a really kind of crazy way where you can actually use it without even running it through Orchid. So if you have a couple different VPN subscriptions, you can actually make a multi-hop circuit in the app and send your traffic through Nord and then ExpressVPN, and then some other free VPN, and get like a multi-hop route going, which is pretty cool. And of course, we also try to make it easy for you to like buy an Orchid account in the app and then send your traffic through a random Orchid node. But you don't actually have to use it with Orchid. And I've seen some real crazy routes that some of our customers have put together, which is like kind of funny to see, sending all the traffic on their phone through like 10 different VPN servers, which is going to add a lot of latency, but
Hmm.
it's hard for any one of those VPN servers, if they're tracking you and they're trying to track everything that you're doing, to really understand what's happening. Because from the perspective of each VPN server, you can only see where the traffic is coming from and where it's going to, and so
Yeah.
if it, like Tor kind of has 3 hops, and 3 hops is a little bit of a magic number, because then not any one hop, well, given that not, if you assume that they're not compromised, obviously if one entity is running multiple hops, then they can see everything. But if you have 3 separate entities running 3 hops, then not any one can see both who you are and what website you're trying to access. And that's kind of the key. They might have a few of those pieces of information. They might know who you are, but then they're just forwarding your packets onto a VPN server. Or they might know what website you're connecting to, but then they're just forwarding those requests back to, to another VPN server. They don't know who is the ultimate user. So with with Orchid, you can actually set up multiple hubs with independent VPN providers. And still, I think we're the only app in the App Store that allows you to do that. I still haven't seen any Apple App Store VPN that lets you do that. Like most of the other VPNs, like Nord or some of the other ones, they add in this multi-hop feature, but you're just doing multiple hops through the same provider. So, just
Hmm.
because you're sending it through 2 Nord VPN servers doesn't really mean much, because if they're tracking one VPN server, they're probably tracking all of their VPN servers. And so, what you really want to do is send it to different, like different parties, totally different parties. So,
Hmm.
yeah, it's a little bit about a VPN. I still run it all the time. I think it's a pretty cool product. It's like I said, we launched it in 2019 and we've refined it over the years. It's still not perfect, and it works a little bit differently from normal VPNs in that we don't let you do geolocation
Hmm.
selection. You basically, we have this thing called a stake weighted random selection, where when you go to connect with Orchid, and you're paying with nanopayments, you actually hit an Ethereum contract or directory contract, and it, depending upon how much OXT is staked in that, depends on which provider you get. And so you basically get kind of assigned sort of a somewhat randomized provider that has some economic alignment with the Orchid network, which is a cool thing. So but a lot of our early users are kind of like, well, I want to watch the BBC or whatever, so I need a node to exit in Europe or in the UK, or they want a specific country, but we don't really support that with our VPN. It's much more, our VPN is much more useful for if you're in a country where the internet's blocked, to get out to the open internet.
Hmm.
Um, that can also be a little tricky because you need to have access to Ethereum. So, a lot of countries where there's a lot of censorship, they start blocking American social media, then they start blocking like the blockchain, because sometimes people put information directly on the Ethereum blockchain. And, but, you know, but that's kind of where it's mainly useful. And then also just for when you're connected to a Wi-Fi, or you're out and about or traveling, like I'm going to be going to a couple crypto conferences soon. I'll be running Orchid.
Nice. Um, yeah, there's a lot to unpack there. First off, what do you think separates you guys the most as a VPN? It can be from, other decentralized competitors and normal centralized ones. Like, for example, I've always used NordVPN. It's expensive to use, in my opinion, but, it works really well. I've used things like OpenVPN too, and those are pretty good. I've always run into like latency issues depending on what you're trying to do or where you're trying to connect.
Yeah.
Latency wise, in terms of speed, how do you think you guys stack up?
I think we're about as good. I don't think we really have optimized for speed a lot. I
Hmm.
think speed's pretty tough. Speed's probably the hardest one.
Mm-hmm.
Everyone loves the idea of privacy, and then they're like, all right, we'll start running this VPN. And it's like, wait, why is everything so slow?
Mm-hmm.
As soon as Instagram slows down, that VPN turns off. You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
somebody's trying to watch some videos or something and they start to get annoyed.
Mm-hmm.
So it really needs to be at least about 5 megabytes a second, maybe 10, so that you really don't perceive that lag, that kind of like slowdown.
Mm-hmm.
And we improved Orchid and got it up to kind of that level, maybe a little bit faster. There's kind of the speed test game, and there's a lot of gaming that happens with the speed tests. So when you start running a VPN and then you run a speed test, there's kind of a lot of different ways those can be measured depending on which one you're using and how you're connecting to it and where you are. But we really try to shoot for that like 5 to 10 megabytes a second of a stable connection, and I think we really hit that. So that sometimes now when I turn Orchid on, I sort of forget that it's running. Like sometimes I'll be testing it just around my house, or I'm not even really on an untrusted network, and then like a couple days later, I'm like, oh, like I have Orchid running,
Mm-hmm.
and it uses a little bit of battery, so sometimes I'll turn it off. But I leave it on while I'm traveling. But you asked like kind of how we stack up.
Yeah.
So that's kind of one. That first one is speed you asked about. Some other things is that, one with Nord, they advertise like it's $2 or $3 a month, but that's only if you pay for several years up front. So typically they're asking for, on the low end, like $12 for 1 month, up to like $90 or $100 for several years of service. Whereas with Orchid, you can, it's pay as you go. So it's a totally different kind of business model where you just put some money into it. You can buy, we have VPN credits that you can buy in the app, and you can put in $1, as little as $1, which would give you, about 15 gigabytes of service. It's 6 cents a gigabyte. So, that's another kind of cool thing is that you can try Orchid for really cheap. You don't, and we're never locking you into any sort of subscription. Also with Orchid, you can pay using our DApp. You can make your own Orchid account and import it into our VPN app and use that to pay for a random VPN connection. That's really innovative and cool. And while other centralized providers might let you pay in crypto, it's not like an Orchid account is like you're moving money onto a layer 2, and you're using that layer 2 to pay for your VPN service. And at any time, you can take your money back off the layer 2 and put it back in your wallet. So that's kind of cool. Then I also mentioned that Orchid is multiple hops. So there's no other VPNs out on the market that have, lets you set up a 3-hop route. So I think that's kind of, those are some of the main differences. We also kind of have more of a network, right? So if you buy a subscription to Nord, like you're only ever going to use Nord servers, whereas we have a decentralized network of providers that are staking OXT to kind of advertise for your business. So every time you connect not necessarily to a different provider, but you go through this sort of randomized algorithm that is based on how much OXT the providers have staked. So there's kind of a lot of differences there, but sometimes we don't even really like to refer to Orchid as a VPN because it's because it's decentralized. It does have a lot of those kind of differences. But I think the most palpable one that most people, when they pick up that, like if you download Orchid right now and you open it up, the biggest thing you're going to see is we're only going to ask you for $1. So if you just put in $1, you can get connected and get that benefit of privacy, from your internet service provider. And if you're traveling or connected to a strange Wi-Fi, that $1 should last you, for quite a while. Like downloading big files or watching tons of movies or something. So,
Yeah,
that's probably
I really like the ability to kind of pay on demand or as you go. It makes a lot
yeah.
more sense. Like I think Nord is like 70 something, $80 a year. Yeah, it's probably cheaper if you buy it for multiple years, but I don't use it that much. I think most people use a VPN because they live somewhere and they want to get access to Netflix or Disney Plus, or they want to watch a football game in the US, but maybe they're outside the country. Like I'm in Colombia right now. So
Oh, wow.
sometimes it's hard to connect to certain apps on my Apple TV or on my laptop, or I want to watch something and I just don't have access to it. I can't watch
Yep.
CNBC if I want to. So you get kind of limited. I think that's what most people use it for.
Yeah.
And I think that savings part of it is really nice because it doesn't make sense to charge someone that much if they're not going to use it all the time, because it just kind of sits there. Most people don't probably think about turning it on. And they want to turn it on when they want to watch something, which is not like all day long. So I don't know. I think the price thing makes a lot of sense.
Yeah. Yeah. I think for it to really work, we need like really high volumes of users. And so we've been growing it and we've seen some steady growth with it. But I think it'll still take time. I think it took a while for Tor to be established, and we still really appreciate and like Tor. It's a browser versus a complete VPN. So there's a lot of differences, and without getting into too much detail, there's kind of different times you'd want to use ones or the other. But for like being in Colombia, you can put in $1 of credit. You can buy some credits, VPN credits in Orchid, like through an in-app purchase, and you don't even have to use our DApp, which is really cool. Like I think we've done a lot of innovation that's under the hood there to find like a compliant way to take fiat and turn it into a crypto kind of backed account that you can spend. So we use actually the Gnosis blockchain, and you get sort of XDAI when you buy VPN credits, and then you can spend them with our preferred providers. But yeah, you can kind of see, I think a lot of our providers are in the United States. So you can definitely try it out. We're on iOS and macOS and Android right now. And see, and then for that use case too is kind of interesting, is if you disconnect Orchid and reconnect, you'll typically get a different VPN provider. Mm-hmm. So if you're trying to load some website and it's not loading, you can disconnect and reconnect, and then your IP address is going to be different because you're just kind of connecting to this decentralized network. And oftentimes, sometimes when I've been in a country like trying to watch HBO, or I'm not in the United States, when I'm out traveling, I'm trying to connect back to the United States. That's worked for me. Orchid, that's not necessarily what we're the best for, but because of that randomization of what provider you connect to. But with that sort of caveat, what's great about Orchid is it's really cheap to just try stuff on it. So
absolutely. What's the easiest way for people to get set up with it? Is it just on the phone, on Android and the Apple Store? Can they get it on desktop as well? What are some other options?
Yeah, so we don't have a Windows GUI yet, but we're on all the other major operating systems. So, but yeah, it works best probably on the phone. So you can just go to the Apple App Store or the Android Play Store and download it. If it's all open source, so you can also download the code and build it yourself. And then we also have we don't do nightly builds, but whenever we do code releases, we'll put the latest code and all the latest builds up on our GitHub repository. And that's also important if you're in a country that doesn't allow VPNs in the app stores. You can still get the code on GitHub and get typically around the world, it's Android, and they're getting the APK file or getting the code to build it themselves. So it's everything's linked from orchid.com, but if you just search in the Play Store or the Apple App Store for Orchid. You'll get some flowers, but you'll see our VPN as well.
Cool, cool. Do you guys have a community? Where can people go to maybe chat or share ideas? Like, do you have a Discord? Do you have a Telegram?
Yeah, we actually have both, but we're trying to spruce up our Discord a lot more.
Mm-hmm.
So we're setting up some some new channels there. We also we have like a channel for app support and node support. And we'll probably set up a channel for our nanopayments once we get that project kind of a little bit more off the ground. And so yeah, I can drop a link to our Discord, but all of our official channels are linked pretty prominently from orchid.com, which is our domain.
Can people find you online as well?
Yeah, I'm at Travis Cannell on Twitter. So go ahead and give me a follow.
Awesome. Guys, go follow Travis. Go check out Orchid. They got the best decentralized VPN out there. They're doing some fantastic stuff with nanopayments, and excited for what you guys are going to do in the near future. I really think you can branch off into a lot of things. So I'm sure those are things maybe you guys are working on as well. So looking really forward to seeing how you guys continue to evolve. You guys got a great product.
Thanks, Brandon.
All right, Travis, thanks for taking the time to come on. Really appreciate it. Let's do it again soon.
Yeah, super fun. Thanks, Brandon. It's a great show.
Awesome. Appreciate it. Thank you. All right, take care. Talk soon.